So my lesson plan, it's more of a unit plan that I did, and I chose. I mean, there's a lot of lessons in between, but I'm gonna do two different lesson plans, and I called it Tribe Life. I said the subject is pre-Columbian Florida Social Studies in the 4th grade. Common Core standards were Social Studies, 4th grade, American History, compare Native American tribes in Florida, analyze primary and secondary resources to identify significant individuals and events throughout Florida history, and explain how the Seminole tribe formed and the purpose of their migration. I said the unit will last 2 to 3 weeks. My summary was in paragraph form, in this unit, students will learn about the main tribes that came to Florida and how they lived their life. Students will also get to know the Seminole Indians' lifestyle and who led them into each of their wars. Students who will get to see primary sources and do cool projects on details/events that took place in Seminole history. My outline included the 5 main tribes of Florida, so you see that there. The second part of the outline was Seminole leaders, and then the third part was Seminole history. I had my Pinterest board, an interactive website, and the laptop's poster boards, bulletin boards, handouts, articles, and journals as enhancements. I said some questions would be: who were the main group of Native in Florida? Who were the leaders of the Seminole tribe during each war? And what caused the 3 Seminole wars? And what were the effects after each? So, objective 1 was Ms. Ortiz's 4th grade social studies class will be able to demonstrate the knowledge of one's tribe's culture through an oral presentation with visual scoring 85% or higher. My formative and summative. My formative assessment was students will do an oral presentation with visuals of one tribe's culture, and for summatives, I said students will take a test on the facts of the Native Americans of Florida. I said accommodations for ESC, I chose students with limited mobility, and I said students won't be moving around too much during this lesson, but I would have a peer student help just in case in case the student can't work there around a laptop or computer. I chose this accommodation because the student will be on track and still process the information if they have help from a peer. I also chose a student with dyslexia, and I said make sure the student has a scavenger hunt paper ahead of time to review for clarity or questions. And I said I chose this accommodation because the students are able to have more time to read it and ask any questions. And for gifted students with high language skills, I said students can create a visual diagram comparing 3 tribes. And then for ESOL, I said early production, I would translate the questions on the scavenger hunt to their native language. And I said I chose this because this way they can better understand the question in the text. And intermediate fluency, I said allow students to get their worksheet ahead of time so they can read it and be able to ask any questions about unfamiliar words with a dictionary. I said I chose this accommodation to students so students won't be delayed because of comprehension. And technical materials for this objective was computer, scavenger hunt worksheet, and then I had a list of the vocabulary there. The multiple intelligence I included was interpersonal. Students will be in groups for the tribe presentation. Intro, students will fill out their KWL chart. Linguistics, students will write 2 to 3 paragraphs about their lives versus the tribes. I didn't have anything for naturalistic or math. For kinesthetics, I said students will be orally presenting and can do a skit to show the life of the tribes. And then visual for spatial, I said students will be adding visuals to their presentation to make it pop, and I didn't have anything for musical. For the anticipatory set, I said after students are done with that, then I said students. Okay, after the students were done with that, then they will watch a video on the Native Americans of Florida. I will also ask students who were the main group of natives in Florida. And then introducing new knowledge. It's direct and it's individual. I said to start, I would arrange the tables in groups of 4 for the later activities. Students will get a scavenger hunt worksheet and a laptop. Then students will go on the website that the teacher writes on the board and start reading about the 5 tribes listed on the header. Students will be answering the questions on the scavenger hunt worksheet, and once they are done, one person from their group will pick a tribe from a bucket. So it was indirect and it was small group for practicing and deepening. I said students will be in their groups and decide which member focuses on types of homes, food, diet, clothing and appearance, and a community family home roles. Students will have 2 days to research this and will be presenting as a group. They will also have to include visuals or props that can be made at home or school. Students will then present their 5 to 10 minute project after 2 days of research. And then for expanding, generating, and testing, I said I was direct and individual again. Students will write in their social studies journal 2 to 3 paragraphs about the difference between their life and the life of the tribe they had to present. Students will also explain which lifestyle they would prefer to live. Then students will share with the class a couple of points from their prompt. And then for closure, I said students will finish their KWO chart and rate how much they liked the web quests. For Unit 2, I said Miss Ortiz's 4th grade class will be able to identify 3 famous Seminole leaders and list 3 important facts on a worksheet with 85% accuracy or higher. For formative, I said students will identify the 3 famous Seminole Indians and list 3 facts on their reflection worksheet, and then students will do a portfolio on the Seminole tribe as their summative. For ESC, I still chose limited mobility and dyslexia, and for each, I said I would have the entire lecture recorded so that the student has access ahead of time and allows them to process the information earlier so they can start writing down their responses. And I chose this accommodation because students can get a head start and will be on the same pace as the other students. And then for dyslexia, I said I would have students go in a group or pair and have someone else read the material so they do not have difficulty reading it. I said I chose this accommodation because being in the group is less pressure and they won't be excluded from the lesson. For gifted, I chose again high language skills. I said students will write a report on the origin of the Seminole tribe and their relocation. I chose this accommodation because it goes deeper into the history of the tribe and has the students do more research to figure it out. And then I chose early production and intermediate fluency for ESOL, and I said I would give the students an alternate response. I chose this accommodation because after seeing what their vocabulary consists of, I would try to change how they respond to worksheets. And I said for intermediate fluency, I would give the student advanced notes so that they can have more details and understand the main ideas better with the information given. I chose this accommodation because students don't struggle trying to piece together the main idea and are able to still be involved. And then for technical materials, I said paper handouts and a journal. Vocabulary is compensation and Seminole. For my multiple intelligence, I said interpersonal, students get into groups to present their famous Seminole Indian. Interpersonal students will be writing a narrative diary prompt on the famous Seminole they chose. And linguistics, students are writing down what they see from their primary source. And visual spatial, students are gluing together a story cube of primary sources. So for anticipatory set, I said show students several pictures about Seminole Indians, and students will figure out if they are a primary or secondary source. Then the teacher will ask what makes an image or object a primary or secondary source. For introducing new knowledge, I said it was direct and it was a whole group. And I said I have students glue together a story cube that contains photos that are primary sources. Have them discuss and write down predictions on what is happening in each photo. And students will write down the differences they can see now. They can see with that time burst now. And then for practicing and deepening, I said direct and I said it was a small group. I said, and then students will split into 3 groups and pick between Osceola, Billy, Bowlegs, and Abaca. Students will create a poster board about these famous Seminole Indians and provide primary sources of these Indians. Then students will share these projects and write down important details from other presentations. And for expanding, generating, and testing, I said indirect and it was individual. Students will choose between the 3 famous Seminole Indians and write a narrative in their perspective of the Seminole lifestyle. Students can research more to try and impersonate their life in this diary prompt and explain how they felt during the time they were leaders of the Seminole tribe. And for closure, I said students will Instagram their learning. Students will get a worksheet with a blank square in the middle of the page and a couple lines under it. Here students will draw to their best ability all they learn and write a caption for it. And then for objective 3, I said Ms. Ortiz's 4th grade social studies class will be able to list 5 to 6 causes and effects from the history of the Seminole tribe, the Seminole Indians in Florida, including the Seminole Wars, on a worksheet with 85% accuracy or higher. So for my formative, I said students will list 5 to 6 causes and effects from the history of the Seminole Indians in Florida, and the summative, students will do a timeline project of all the information they were given about the 3 Seminole Wars. So again, for ESC, I chose limited mobility and dyslexia. And for limited mobility, I said students won't be moving around a lot, but students can orally respond to questions to the teacher as a partner. I chose this accommodation because students will not have to be mobile and the teacher can assist if the answers are incorrect. And I said students with dyslexia, I would have a pre-recorded tape so that the student will have all the text and questions read to them. I chose this accommodation because students will be able to interpret the information and answer the questions without any difficulty. Accommodations for gifted. Again, it was high language skills. And I said I would have students study major Seminole chiefs and discuss how they helped or hindered the Seminoles' fight of the Seminole Wars. I chose this combination because students get to focus on a more detailed cause and effect of the war and the perspective the chiefs had on the war. And then again for ESOL, I chose early production and intermediate fluency. And I said for early production, I will create images that show the cause and effect instead of having them write it down. I chose this accommodation because students are still in the beginning stages and they will connect with the images they will connect the images with words. And then for intermediate fluency, I would have students communicate with the ESOL teacher so that they can have someone translate perfectly what they do not understand in their native language. I chose this accommodation because history is hard to explain and it's better to have someone that knows what they're doing / talking about. For technical materials, I said worksheets, handouts, poster boards, and bulletin board. For vocabulary, I said Seminole, compensation, truce, treaty, pampered, and retaliated. And interpersonal, students write what they liked about the lesson. Interpersonal, students get in groups to make a skit. Kinesthetic, students do a skit to replicate a newscast. Linguistic, students write down the cause and effects of the 3 Seminole Wars. And for anticipatory set, students will ask the question, what do they think the Seminoles' life consisted of? Students will draw or write things that they think the Seminoles had or did while they existed. And for introducing new knowledge, I said it was direct and whole group. I said students will get a paper that introduces them to the Seminoles. As a class, we will do popcorn reading, and after we are done, students will get and answer the worksheet, learn about the Seminoles. The worksheet has questions like what did the Seminoles eat, what were their transportation, weapons they used, and their clothing. Students will do a competition on who can research and find out how the Seminoles originated first. For practicing and deepening, I said direct and individual. Students will get 3 papers that talk about each Seminole War and 2 more papers called cause and effect. After students read about all 3 seminal wars. Then students will find out the cause and effect worksheet. Fill out the cause and effect worksheet. The first cause and effect worksheet has the cause side empty and the effect had all the 3 wars listed, while on the second worksheet, the information on the effect side was on the cause side so that the students can fill out the effect. For expanding and generating, I said indirect and it was small group, and I said students will get a worksheet called if and then, and will predict what would have happened back then and to our world now if a detail or event was changed. Students will try to create a skit which replicates a newscast explaining one of the causes and effects that they have on one of their worksheets. For closure, I said students will write what their favorite part of the lesson was in their journal, and then that was it. I mean, that was it.